First I'll compare how they're the same. Both have fur coats for the wind, snow and rain. Domesticated dogs love to play together. Similarly, both puppies will play in any weather. Pet dogs have paws, wolves do as well. Likewise, they both will eat meat. Can you tell? To see how they're different, let's contrast. Most wolves have longer teeth, and that's a fact. If a wolf gets sick, there's no medicine. In contrast, pets go to the vet. They let them in. Domesticated dogs don't worry about food. They get fed in a bowl. I bet they love it too. Unlike a wolf, which has to hunt, and if it can't find much food, they go hungry for months. A wolf can run free, do anything it pleases, while domesticated doggies are tied up with leashes. So while I might like to be a pet dog for a while, I want to be free. That's the call of the wild. I'm a wolf. Compare when I say how things are similar, like doll houses and ponies, both miniature. I contrast when I say how things are different. Give examples and get specific. You get it? I compare when I say how things are similar or the same. Yeah, I bet that sounds so familiar. I contrast when I say how things are different. Give examples and get specific. You get it?
Okay, I hope you all got it. I like vocabulary because I think the rhythm, the music, assists us in remembering these concepts. Okay, the compare and contrast essay asks you all to choose two things that seem similar, but somehow they are different, or to choose two things that are different, and you're going to show how they are actually similar. Take note, very important point coming up. Make sure that you note this important point. Are you ready? Here you go. In BGCSE language arts, to compare means to state how two things are alike and different, okay? In BGCSE language arts, when you get a question that asks you to compare, you're going to say how the two things are alike and different. Very important to note. So for example, you may get a question saying, compare Joanna and Kathy, compare those two girls. This means you're going to explain how the two girls are alike, and you're going to explain how the two girls are different. Okay, so we see an example here where we're going Star Trek and Star Wars. Okay, two different genres of the same star-based fantasy world. Two completely different, two similar but completely different, different shows. Well, one's a show and one's a movie. Let's look at this thesis statement that we would have found in the introduction of our essay. And please note, even though we're doing different essay bodies, the introduction format stays the same, the conclusion format stays the same. And you can find all of those resources under the grade 10 resources. Okay, so when you write your introduction, you enter a thesis statement that tells us the three things you're going to focus on in your essay. So for this comparison essay comparing Star Trek and Star Wars, this is the thesis statement. Star Trek and Star Wars are both science fiction dramas that take place in outer space. But Star Trek is more utopian, has a greater emphasis on personal relationships, and explores ethical dilemmas in a way that Star Wars does not. So based on the thesis, we know that we're going to focus on utopian outlook, personal relationships, ethical dilemmas. That's the three body paragraphs. We see similarities and differences. Similarities, we see both are science fiction, both take place in outer space, and both are dramas. Then we see the differences. Star Trek is utopian, while Star Wars is more negative and more violent. Star Trek focuses more on personal relationships. Star Wars focuses more on action, fighting scenes, shooting, the drama. the last one, Star Trek focuses on ethical dilemmas, and Star Wars more on the action and the fighting. Let's look at another example of ways we can, items we can compare and contrast. Flying and taking the train. We have an airplane up there and a fast train at the bottom. Flying and taking the train are both options for relatively short distances of travel, but the train is less stressful, more comfortable, and usually cheaper than flying. And we see our transition here, our but, to show that contrast. We know the three things that they're going to focus on are the train being less stressful, the train is more comfortable, the train is more economical because it is cheaper. Okay, so the similarities would be they're both modes of transportation. They will get you from one place to the other. And the differences that will be explored is flying is stressful, the train is comfortable, and the train is cheaper. One tool very important for you to use, I cannot emphasize it enough, is the Venn diagram, okay? The Venn diagram, you have the two different topics on each side, and in the middle, you're going to say how they are alike. We have another video for you to look at, another little cartoon from your childhood, where you're going to compare and contrast using your Venn diagram, Marlon and Dory. Went a bit too far there. Okay, Marlon and Dory, we are ready for you.
Comparing and contrasting. Today we are going to be comparing and contrasting Marlin and Dory from Disney's Pixar's Finding Nemo. We will be finding the similarities and differences between the two characters using keywords such as similar, similarity, both, also, and contrast words like difference, however, but. Let's start by making a list on a Venn diagram of all the things we know about Dory. So put your thinking caps on and think about all the things you know about Dory that are different from Marlin.
Okay. I see some of you already answering. Dory has amnesia, whereas Marlin's memory is what? Precise. Dory has short-term memory, while Marlin's has good short and long-term memory. Good, so some of you remember the still cartoon. Dory is blue, while Marlin is, okay, Dory, you've answered that for me. Dory is an angelfish. Marlin is a clownfish. Excellent, Keyshawn, right? Exactly how you picked your point. Okay, let's continue with our video.
Here is our Venn diagram. In one circle, it tells you all the things you know about Dory, and in the other circle, it tells you all the things you know about Marlin. And in the center, where they overlap, that's what they both have in common, also known as similarities. So now, let's focus on Dory's circle. So what do we know about Dory? Dory is a girl. She is blue. She's forgetful. She speaks whale. She is fearless. These are all characteristics of Dory that we can place in her circle just about her. So now let's focus on Marlin. What do we know about Marlin? Marlin is a boy. He is orange. He's a dad. He's fearful. He worries a lot. These are all characteristic traits that we would write in Marlin's circle. Last but not least, let's compare the similarities between the two characters. So, what do we know that they have that's in common? They're both brave, they are both fish, they're both caring, and of course, they're both looking for Nemo. But mostly, they would do anything for their friends. And don't forget, these are also known as the similarities between the two characters. So now let's look at our finished product of our Venn diagram, with the similarities and differences between Marlin and Dory. So now, let's create some sentences. First, we will compare the two. So blank and blank are similar because they both... So let's think. The sentence we can come up with...
Okay, what is one way that you could fill that sentence in? Blank and blank are similar. That first blank and blank should be easy to fill in. So blank and blank are similar. Good job. Dory and Marlin are similar because they both blank. Looking at the Venn diagram, what do we see? I see they both are fish. They both are looking for Nemo. They both live under the sea. Wasn't that diagram great? Okay, let's continue.
Could be something like this. Dory and Marlin are similar because they both are on an adventure to find Nemo. Now, let's create a contrasting sentence. What are the differences between Marlin and Dory? Let's use the same format as we previously did with the similar sentence to create a sentence with contrasting keywords. So now, this is the sentence we've created. Dory and Marlin are different because Marlin is an orange fish, while Dory is a blue fish. Now, don't forget, I know this can be tricky, but just keep writing. And like Dory always says, just keep swimming.
Okay. Now we're going to look at 2 ways you can structure your paragraphs when you're writing this comparison and contrast. We looked at organizing ideas, our planning phase, where you have your Venn diagrams, and you're going to take that diagram and turn that into paragraphs. There are 2 methods of structuring the paragraphs when you are writing your comparison and your contrast essay. The first one is the point by point outline. This is where you say, you find the 3 different points, and then you're going to explain how the 2 items are different or are alike based on that point. So the topic we're going to focus on in these examples are, you're going to contrast today's homes with those of 100 years ago. So this tells us to contrast. This means we are only talking about, so that means we're only talking how they are different, okay? So with this type of line, we're looking at 3 differences. We're contrasting today's homes with those of 100 years ago based on the layout, the size, and the building materials. This is our body part. These are our body paragraphs. So what you do is you discuss the layout of house A, then you discuss the layout of house B within that first body paragraph. Then you go to the second body paragraph where you discuss the size. You discuss the size of house A, you discuss the size of house B. In your third body paragraph, you're going to discuss building materials. First, you discuss the building materials that were used to make house A. Then you discuss the building materials that were used to make house B. And of course, you're using your contrast vocabulary words from the worksheet you got last week. If you didn't get it last week, you'll find it in the items with all of your materials on the Ministry of Education's website. And you use those contrast words to show the contrast, as well as continuing with the other transitional words to move the paragraph smoothly from one point to the other. So this is a point by point outline. You have your 3 points. You discuss those 3 points in entirety based on both topics. This is how the structure is going to look when you write your paragraph, where you contrast today's homes with the homes of 100 years ago. Your layout, your building materials, your landscape. Everything about layout in one paragraph, everything about size in one paragraph, everything about building materials in one paragraph, everything about landscape in one paragraph. Remember, it's important for us to keep our writing organized, okay? And even when we're speaking, we have to remember that we keep everything organized so that our readers or our listeners can follow along with what we are saying. Structuring your paragraph. The second method, first one was point by point. The second one is subject by subject. This is also called our block structuring. Okay, the topic remains the same. Contrast today's homes with those of 100 years ago. So this is where you cover all the points on one side, all the points on the other side. This is where you talk about today's homes in its entirety, the homes of 100 years ago in its entirety. So with this method, you talk about house A, layout, size, material, landscape. House B, layout, size, material, landscape. With this method, you would probably end up getting more than your 3 body paragraphs as you're trying to develop them fully so that your reader can understand. The topic is the same, contrast today's homes with those of 100 years ago. Now, we have both paragraph methods side by side, comparing the two. This is how it would look with the block method is the first one in the black. House A, layout, size, material, landscape, that's points A, B, C, D. House B, the same points, layout, size, material, landscape, compared to the point by point format. 1 layout, 2 size, 3 building materials. Layout AB, size AB, building materials AB. And I would like to point out grade 10. When you are contrasting, you have to make sure that your contrast is complete. What do I mean by that? If you are saying that you are contrasting an apple and a banana, you would not say an apple is red and a banana is long. Those do not match. So you have to make sure your contrast match by saying an apple is red while a banana is yellow. You're contrasting on the main point of color, okay? Or you can say an apple is round, a banana is more oval shaped. You're contrasting on size, okay? That's how you get your full points. Make sure your contrast match and make sure that your contrast is complete. In your responses, I saw someone said that Marlin is smaller than Dory. Out of 2 points, I would only get 1 point because it's not complete. Marlin is small while Dory is large, okay? Those ER words that are comparing, that are telling us something is bigger or smaller or larger or faster, it's not giving us our complete contrast. So I want you to be aware of this, okay? When you are contrasting, you're contrasting on the exact same point. You're contrasting on the point of the person's character. So you talk about this one is friendly, the other one is antisocial, okay? You're making sure that it is balanced. You're contrasting on somewhat, on a color, you're talking specifically about the color. If you're contrasting about the layout of house A, you would contrast the same thing with house B. You make sure that they match so you get your, not only getting your full points, it helps you as you're trying to make decisions to understand, okay, what's the benefit of this one over this one when you compare the exact things side by side, okay? So that's my point here. As we see, it is balanced on the examples in front of you. Make sure that your contrast matches. And it's the same topic, contrasting today's homes with those from 100 years ago. Now, I know this is the time you've been waiting for. You're going to have 10 minutes to do your very own writing. You're going to write your paragraph to discuss the similarities and differences between WhatsApp and Facebook Messenger. Okay? This is your only one paragraph, so I'm looking for 3 points. Okay? When you're discussing your similarities and differences, I'm looking for 3 things to be discussed. So you're writing your paragraph now, right here.
Hi, welcome to grade 2 math with Mrs. Farrington. That's me right there. And today we're going to be looking at fractions. And before we begin, you're going to need some materials for the activity. First, you're going to need like paper. You're going to need a ruler. You can use pencil if you wish. Colored pencil, crayon, but you need something to color with, or markers if you have markers and your parents allow you to use markers. 1, 2, scissors, and glue. So those are basically what you're going to need. And oh, most importantly, something round. Now I'm using the lid from a pot. Anything round that you have around the home, and make sure you ask your parent first. Don't go and take your mommy's lid out of the cupboard and use it without a permission, especially if it's glass, because you don't want to break it. So now we begin. We're going to be talking about fractions. And I'm going to start with a story about 2 friends. And these friends are Lene and Kalika. They're very, very good friends. So Lene on Friday, she went to Miss Rule and she bought a coconut tart. Lene shared her tart with her friend Kalika because they're like best friends. Both girls were really happy and everything was cool. So on Sunday after church now, Kalika bought tart as well. She went to Miss Rule and she bought tart after church. And then she shared it too with her friend. Kalika took a piece and then she gave a piece to Lene. Now, Lene took one look at her piece and then she looked at Kalika's piece and she said, Kalika, you ain't fair, you know. You ain't fair, you big eye. So Kalika was like, what you talking about? I share my tart with you. I break it and I give you half. Kalika was like, no, 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 no. So Lene was like, no, you didn't give me half. You gave me a piece, but it wasn't half. She said, look good at your piece. Your piece is bigger than mine. So is Lene correct? Let's look. We have, this is Lene's tart, and this is how she separated. She took a piece and she gave Kalika a piece. This is Kalika's tart, and Kalika took a piece, and then she gave Lene a piece. So when we look here, Lene would have made sure that she and Kalika had the same size. But when we look at Kalika's, we can see that Kalika's piece is much larger than Lene's. Now in math, equal parts means to have the same weight, size, or quantity or other measurements. So it's the same. Remember when you did even numbers? Even numbers can share equally without a remainder. So it's the same size. Now, unequal parts in math is when we have parts that are not exactly the same weight, size, or measurement. There's always one that's bigger. Like in odd numbers, there's always one left over. 3 is an odd number because you get one, I get one, and then you get one, but there's no more for me to get, so one will get more. So it's unequal. Now, how does this, well, what does this have to do with fractions? Well, I'll tell you what it has to do with fractions. A fraction is a part of a whole. When we put these together, this is Lene's tart. That's the whole tart. This is Kalika's whole tart. A fraction is a part of a whole. Now, both of these are whole, so we can say this is a fraction and this is a fraction. But we wouldn't be correct because fractions have to be equal. All the parts must be equal. So Lene she gave her a fraction. She gave her half because these are equal. They're the same size. Kalika, on the other hand, this is not a fraction. These are unequal parts. Kalika's part is clearly larger or bigger than Lene's part. And so, no, Kalika was not fair in the way that she shared it. Now, we can't say she's big-eyed. Maybe Kalika just can't cut. Maybe that's it, but we can't just say she's big-eyed. But that's Lene's friend. You don't get in that because they're going to be friends later. So, now let's look at further at Lene's. We're going to use her part, her thought. So, Lene took a piece. So she gave one to her friend. And there were 2 pieces in all. So that's the fraction. She had one. She had 2 pieces in all, and she gave her friend a piece. So what fraction? She gave her friend Kalika 1 out of the 2 pieces that she had. All right. So 1 and 2. But when we're talking about fractions, we just don't say 1 and 2. These numbers have special names. So I'm going to sing you a little song. I'm not a music teacher, but I'm going to sing you a little song so that you can remember what we call these numbers. And it goes like this. Each number in a fraction has a name. Each number in a fraction has a name. On the top, the numerator. On the bottom, the denominator. Each number in a fraction has a name. So, like the song said, each of the numbers have a name. So on the top here, we have if you were listening or you were singing along, because I know you catch on really fast, the number at the top is the numerator. And then the number at the bottom, the denominator. So those are the special names. They're really big words, but you'll remember because numerator and denominator. But there's also another part. There's also another part. What about this? Miss Farrington, that's the line. That's the line. Yes, it's the line. But that line also has a special name. This line is called the fraction bar. It's called the fraction bar. So at the top we have the numerator, at the bottom the denominator, and then the fraction bar is the line that separates them. So your denominator tells you how many pieces there are in all. There were 2 pieces in all. And then your numerator will tell you about the pieces that are shaded or the piece that the problem speaks to. For instance, which fraction did Lene give to Kalika? She gave her 1. So she gave her 1 out of the 2 pieces. So the fraction there is 1 out of 2, or a word that we use a lot. I know you know this word. Another word. This word. Because they talked about it. Half. Half. 1 out of 2 is half. Now, another way to look at fractions is part of a group. So let me flip this over because I can't write upside down. So we have these blocks, these attribute blocks, and let's count them. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 blocks. 8 blocks in a row. Correct? So we already know how many blocks we have in all. So I can go ahead and write my bottom number. Oops, we don't say bottom number, we say denominator. So I write my denominator because there are 8 blocks in all. I'm going to draw my fraction bar to separate the denominator from, what do we call the top number? You got it, from the numerator. So how would I know what my numerator is? It can be anything, eh? No, it can't be anything. Here's what my question would be. What fraction of the blocks are brown? So the first thing I need to know is, of course, I will have to know my colors. I have 3 colors, 3 different colors here. So I have pink, I have brown, and I have green. So I know my colors. Yay! So I'm looking for the brown. That's what I am speaking to. So okay, these are brown blocks. So I have 1, 2, 3. So 3 brown blocks out of 8 blocks in all. So my fraction is 3/8. 3/8 of the blocks are brown. So let's make sure you got that. 3/8. 3 of the blocks are brown, but there are 8 blocks in all. It's very important to not miss this because a lot of times, sometimes, children, here's what you will do. You will say 3 out of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 instead of including this. So our denominator is very important. Our denominator is how much there are in all. And then the numerator is the fraction of the objects that the question speaks to. Okay, now we got that. Now let's get back to our story. Not quite. What we're going to do now as an activity, we are going to do some art. Remember I told you that you would have needed something round? Well, here's my pot cover. I'm an adult, so I don't have to ask to use the pot cover. It's my pot cover. And I'm going to use, I like Crayola Twistables because I don't have to sharpen them. So I'm going to trace around and I make sure that I hold my pot cover down. Whatever you have, make sure you hold it down so that your circle is as straight as possible. Ooh, it's nice, eh? And I'm going to draw a cookie. Now, I'm going to draw a cookie and let's see if you could figure out what kind of cookie I'm going to be making. So you pretend like while I'm drawing it, it's like I'm mixing the ingredients, the flour, the sugar, the eggs, what else? The baking powder, the butter, of course my special ingredient that for which flavor cookie. So use your context clues to make inferences about what kind of cookie it is that I am making. And these look delicious, don't they? This is gonna look so good. So we're mixing, mixing, mixing. So when you're drawing your cookie, it's like you're mixing all the ingredients. We've measured it and we're mixing it. I'm gonna put one more here. And I'm only using 1 crayon because my type of cookie, I don't need that many. So now that's why we had to press down when we were tracing to make sure that you had a good outline or border. You know, in art class, your art teacher tells you to do a border. Well, what the border does is it it's a guide to help you not to go outside of the line, because we want to make sure that when we are coloring, we are not coloring outside of the line. We want our picture to look neat. And also notice I'm not pressing as hard while I'm shading in my cookie as I did with, have you guessed what kind of cookie I'm making? Hmm? Do you think it's oatmeal raisin? Could these be raisins? It could be, but no, it's not oatmeal raisin. I don't like raisins. I do not like raisins. Did you know that raisins are dried grapes? Yeah, I don't like raisins. So these are not oatmeal raisin cookies. Well, this isn't an oatmeal raisin cookie. I think somebody may have guessed it. This is a chocolate chip cookie. You see my big chunks of chocolate chip? So when I was drawing them, I made sure that I drew my chocolate chips very dark, because I knew that I would be coloring it over with the same brown crayon. So I made these dark, and then I colored it light so it looks like a nice round cookie. Of course, you could use tan if you want, or if you're gonna make red velvet cookies, like the Cookie Cater has red velvet cookies, so you can get all creative with it. And remember I said we needed a ruler, so because I'm gonna be sharing this and I want it to be equal because it has to be fractions. Um, but I'm going to use a little trick. What I do is I fold it over and I look at my line. If all of my lines touching, I make a crease. That's a crease. So I'll have an invisible line. And then I fold it again and make a crease, so that now when I open it, I don't have to guess where my line is going to be. And I take my crayon pencil and I draw my dividing line. So this is like the cookie is cooling. It's on the cooling rack, because after you take the cookie out of the oven, it has to cool. If you don't let the cookie cool, it's just going to crumble, and you can't share that. Nobody's going to really want that. So the next part is you're going to need your scissors. Make sure you're using child safety scissors. If you don't have scissors at home, what you can do is around your plate, for the persons who don't have, and because it's a plate, you could, you buy your mommy have that nice china, yeah, and you could put decorations on it, around it, and stuff like that. You can do that if you don't have scissors. And you're going to do that while those of us who do have scissors, we're going to cut along the edge or the perimeter. Let's use a math word, the perimeter, because perimeter is around. So we're going to cut around the perimeter of this cookie. Making sure that we stay right on the line, because we don't want our cookie to be misshapen. When you look, your cookie be shaping funny. It's supposed to be round, but then it's all jaggedy. Like some of the pieces fell off because you didn't let it cool, and then you just picked it up off of the cookie sheet. So we've cut it around it, and now another math word. We're cutting it and we're dividing it. By cutting it, this is dividing. And when you get to grade 3, you're going to learn about division. We're dividing it. Or another math word, sharing it. So out of that whole big cookie, I have 4 pieces. I have 4 pieces, see? And they're pretty much, let's pretend like all are the same size, because they have to be equal, okay? So, what are we doing next? We're getting all artsy now. So, what are we doing next? We are going to we're going to glue it down now. Glue it down. We're going to pretend like all of these equal parts because it has to be equal parts, but there are 4 parts in this whole. And you saw me slice up my cookie, so we know that it came from this one cookie. Then I get my glue, and when we use glue, we open our glue, and we're not going to put a whole bunch of glue on the backs of these pieces. So remember this, just a dot, not a lot. So I'm going to use 3 dots at the perimeters. Just a dot. And why do we use a dot? Well, we don't want to, first and foremost, we don't want to waste the glue. That's the first thing. And then we want our pieces to dry really quickly. We don't want it to have to stay out for a while before it dries. So I've just glued my pieces. Okay. Now, the last part that we're going to do is we're going to do some writing. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'm going to write and we're going to use the same math word. I divided my cookie in, remember, 4 pieces, in 4, and shared it with, who am I going to share it with? Lene, Kalika, and Jaquay. And there ends my sentence. So I divided my cookie in 4 and shared it with Lene, Kalika, and Jaquay. So I shared it with 1, 2, 3 people, but I have 4 pieces. So this is Lene, Kalika, Jaquay. So who's this for? Ha! This piece is for me, so I make the 4th person. So I would have shared my cookie between 4 people. And if I wanted, I could write a fraction and ask which fraction of my cookie did I give away. So I'm going to start. I have 4 pieces in all. I should turn this around. I'm not going to trust that. So I have 4 pieces in all. I gave Lene, Kalika, and Jaquay. So that's 3 people. So out of my 4 pieces, I gave away 3. So that's 3/4 or 3/4. I hope you enjoyed this activity, and you can do this and write your friends' names, because we're not seeing our friends for a while because of Corona. We have to stay indoors. We have to stay safe. We have to social distance ourselves. So you can do this activity, write your friends' names, those we've not seen. And then when you get back to school, you can probably put them together and have a nice cookie book. I hope you enjoyed this, and I will see you, or we will talk next time. This has been Grade 2 Math with Mrs. Farrington. So, see you. Take care and stay safe.